of the palace, according to eyewitnesses.
A lot of eyewitnesses reports on Twitter saying that armed police have been seen running to the exit from the UK Parliament. Sounds like an explosion. Other people saying sounds like gunfire. Let's talk to our correspondent Mark White, who can bring us the latest. Mark, what do we know for certain?
We know from sources just confirming to me that a serious incident is unfolding. Scotland Yard say they are getting multiple calls about this. Information that I've got from a fellow journalist at the scene reporting sound of gunfire heard near the entrance to the Commons itself. As you can imagine, there are lots of reports coming out on Twitter. All we can say at the moment at this point, apart from these social media reports, is that a serious incident is unfolding or has unfolded outside Parliament. There was a report from a fellow journalist who was walking across Westminster Bridge with the sounds of gunfire.
Mark, I'm going to interrupt you there because we can show you some footage.
This is the moment Parliament was suspended.
Order! I am now going to suspend the sitting of the House. This House is now suspended, but please wait here.
The Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons suspending activities inside the House, where, of course, PMQs happened just less than 2 hours before that. A Reuters photographer has seen 6 people injured on Westminster Bridge, according to Reuters.
Inside Westminster, as we say, Westminster, the Houses of Parliament suspended there. Journalists inside the building are all tweeting. They have now all been told to stay in their offices inside the press gallery inside.
Reuters are reporting that medical staff have been seen treating 2 people inside the gates of the UK Parliament. Our defence correspondent Alistair Bunkle can join us now. Alistair, what do you know?
See around here, that is where the broadcasters on big state occasions at Parliament stand for looking to the House of Lords end, if you like. A police cordon's going up. 2 police cars are now going through with their sirens going. A doctor on foot was just hurried through the cordon by the police who are here. So he's been taken through to attend to someone. There are still members of the public and perhaps members of the parliamentary staff who are hurrying or walking quickly away from Parliament and down towards the cordon. And apart from that, it's pretty quiet. And I have to say, relatively calm this end of things, but the police are very jumpy, keeping everyone back and not allowing people to progress too far. As I say that, we're now just being forced back a little bit further.
Alistair, as we're speaking to you, we're going through various different news sources whilst we speak to you. A lot of people reporting panic in that area of Westminster, a lot of people running away from the Parliament area because of these sounds of the shots, a number of reports of people being treated on the ground in that area.
Actually, we're going to go to Mark White, our Home Affairs editor, who's got a statement from Scotland Yard. Mark.
Yes, Scotland Yard, it is very brief, but they are now confirming an incident that is unfolding at the palaces of Westminster. They have no more information at the moment that they can share with us. It is the very early stages of this incident. As you can see, the protocols that normally are put in place when a serious incident like this unfolds are now being put in place. You can see from our live shot there the police vehicle that is on Westminster Bridge itself. We have perimeters now being set up at all of the entrances, all of the routes into this area around the Houses of Parliament and leading to Parliament Square. You can see that is one vehicle. It looks like an armed response vehicle with perhaps another civilian vehicle that's just pulled up onto the pavement there. The reports that we were getting was that some of the injured were on Westminster Bridge, that perhaps this incident unfolded on Westminster Bridge itself and then may have moved towards the palaces of Westminster. You can see now many more police resources arriving there.
Robert Nisbet is there for us down at the scene. Robert, what can you see? What can you tell us?
Well, we're on Millbank at the moment. You can see that we're being pushed back by police at the moment. We came down here about 4 or 5 minutes ago, and there was a wave of people running down the street, including workmen and others who work around Parliament, who just said they didn't know what was going on, but they heard a noise and they were told just to get out as quickly as possible. Just above us now, Jane, we could hear a helicopter. It seems to have gone. I think you can see it there. That is the air ambulance that is coming in down to land as we get moved a little bit further away. But none of those people I spoke to, and if you turn around here, you can see the people who have gathered behind the plastic tape. Police very quick to set up a cordon. And Jane, just as we came out of our office, which is just over there, we saw what appeared to be, and I can't confirm this or guarantee it, but a car that looked as though it was the official detail of the Prime Minister that seemed to be speeding very quickly away. The full blues and twos, the blue flashing lights as well as the sirens as we get pushed past this cordon tape. If you'll just bear with me, we'll just go underneath it now. So the air ambulance appears to have landed now. It was up in the air, I can't see it anymore, so we think it has landed. No, it's just coming in there. We see? There is the air ambulance landing. It looks as though it's going to try and land on Parliament Square there at the moment. So Parliament Square, for those who are not familiar with the geography, is just at the end of Westminster Bridge, where we believe this incident has taken place. But a noticeable air of, as you can imagine, a panic in the air. Police, a lot of police are obviously stationed around Parliament in this particular area anyway, so there was a number of emergency services around, but I haven't felt that level, that surge of panic in this area well, I haven't felt it at all. I mean, this is clearly a serious incident. Some of these workmen around us at the moment who were running in their high-vis vests and hard hats away from work that they were doing on the street around here. So obviously it is a confused situation at the moment. We're awaiting more information, but the air ambulance has just landed in Parliament Square as the police move us back past this second cordon now that has been established.
Robert, thanks very much.
Let's turn to Kevin Schofield, the editor of Politics.home, for his view on what's happened there. Kevin, what have you seen?
Yeah, well, about 15 minutes ago, we just heard a very loud bang outside the office. We're in the press gallery in Parliament here, and looked out the window. There was lots of shouting, men running around, and then looked to my left, and there's a part of the estate called Carriage Gates, which are heavily fortified. Someone looked like they rushed through, attacked a policeman. The policeman went down. Another policeman came to his rescue. Then the man who'd assaulted him got up. He appeared to be carrying either a knife or a gun. I think probably a knife, but I'm not 100% sure because I wasn't that close to it. And then we had gunfire, lots of gunfire, maybe 5 or 6 rounds. And then it got really quite panicky after that, as you can imagine.
So, Kevin, as far as you could see, the shots that were fired were by the police at the assailant. Is that your understanding?
We think so, yeah. As I say, I mean, it happened really, really quickly. All I just remember seeing is the man approaching one of the police officers with a knife, and then there was gunfire. I mean, there's a lot of armed police here all the time anyway, so I would imagine that's where the gunfire came from. I'm looking out the window now. There's quite a lot of police, but they seem to be relatively calm. We're all locked in our office here. We're not allowed to get out. Westminster Bridge is obviously in lockdown, Parliament Square as well. So there's no traffic coming to or from Parliament, and yeah, we're all just been told to stay in our offices until given further information.
Did you have any sense, Kevin, that a vehicle had been used? Because there are separate reports suggesting that some people were hit.
Well, yeah, like I say, there was bangs that we heard, and when we looked out the window at first, we thought perhaps it was a bus crash. There seemed, because all the traffic had stopped. There was lots of people running around, but so perhaps that bang that we heard, like it did sound like a crash, like a car crash. Perhaps that's what it could have been. That's what first made us sort of realise that something dramatic was happening outside.
And Kevin, if I can just be clear in terms of the whereabouts of this, particularly for people who aren't familiar with the geography as you are, at the Palace of Westminster, I'm seeing a government source suggesting that the knife man, as you've described, was actually inside the grounds of the Palace of Westminster. Can you confirm that?
Yeah, definitely. As I say, there's an area called Carriage Gates, which is normally closed to the public. You can only get in with a security pass. There's always armed police on the gates there. But someone rushed through that, got through the security gates and assaulted a policeman. I saw the policeman go down, then another policeman sort of come to his aid, and that's when the guy got up and he seemed to have a knife in his hand. And that was when we heard gunfire.
Could you in any way identify the assailant? I mean, was he shouting anything? What were his actions?
I couldn't. We're through. I was watching it through the window, so I couldn't sort of hear exactly what he was saying. I think there may well have been shouting, but I couldn't tell you what it was. But he was walking towards the second policeman with his arm outstretched with what looked like a knife in his hand, having already assaulted another one. Another policeman got him down on the ground. So, as I say, it was at that moment when you realise something serious was happening, that this man had broken into Parliament, as it were, and had a weapon. And then, as I say, you heard the gunfire, and I presume there was a man I saw earlier who was surrounded by police and medics getting some kind of treatment, and I can only assume that was the man who was holding the knife.
Kevin, we really appreciate what you've been able to tell us today. We've got lots of different lines that we want to share with our viewers. If you can stay on the line, that would be really useful. If you can't, we understand.
Let's just remind you the latest information that we do have here at Sky News. Within the last few minutes, in the last half an hour, sounds that people have described like gunfire were heard outside the Houses of Parliament. A number of people say that they saw somebody believed to be carrying a knife in Parliament Square, in the actual Houses of Parliament building area, inside the grounds of the Houses of Parliament. Parliament was immediately stopped. Let's just listen in.
Order! I am now going to suspend the sitting of the House. This House is now suspended, but please wait here.
So Parliament was suspended. The building was put into lockdown. A number of people inside that building have been tweeting that they are not allowed to leave the building. Buildings in the area were also put into lockdown, a number of other political buildings in the area. Chaos on the streets as people ran from it. Separately, there are also other reports of an incident on Westminster Bridge, where some reports say that a car has run down a number of people. Those two have not been confirmed yet by police. But we also know that Transport for London have shut the underground station at Westminster. This was after a request from the police.
To what extent a plan has been put in place in terms of a lockdown and what is actually a response to events is difficult to know. So, for instance, in that context, we learn that the Prime Minister, who of course had been at PMQs, was in the division lobby voting when a plainclothes police officer turned up and ushered her away. She was apparently bundled into a car.
The alleged assailant was shot by armed police. An ambulance is currently attending the scene to remove the casualties. There are also reports of further violent incidents in the vicinity of the Palace of Westminster, but I hope colleagues on all sides will appreciate that it would be wrong of me here to go into further details until we have confirmation from the police and from the House security authorities about what is going on. I shall endeavour to do the very best I can, both at the dispatch box and by communicating with my opposite numbers in other political parties, to ensure that members are kept aware of what is happening. But at the moment, the very clear advice from the police and the Director of Security in the House is that we should remain under suspension and that the Chamber should remain in lockdown until we receive advice that it is safe to go back to normal procedures.
What I wasn't going to do was enter into debate at this stage. I just wanted to make sure that people are informed why we're in here and why we're in lockdown. And we will come to later on when we know where we're up to. Shall the Leader of the House?
Can I just thank you for that, and can I thank the Leader for the statement, and just to say that our thoughts and prayers are with the police officer, and to thank the police and all the security services and all the staff for looking after us so well.
But now,
the honourable lady, and I think those sentiments will be shared without reservation in all parts of the House.
So we remain suspended till further notice. OK.
Well, they're the Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons. The Chamber, of course, full, not least because Prime Minister's questions wound up a little over 2 hours ago. The Prime Minister, we're told, was in a voting lobby when she was ushered out of the building as part of a procedure that saw a plainclothes officer take her away for her own safety. The Chamber now, as you heard the Deputy Speaker say, is in lockdown. No further business, but MPs staying there.
This is what's happening in Westminster. There are other reports, and I must state that these are other reports, also unconfirmed, of another incident on Westminster Bridge, and we are getting some reports of a number of bodies who have been seen on Westminster Bridge from several sources on Twitter. None of those confirmed, though, by the authorities as yet.
We can go to Robert Nisbet, who is in Westminster. Robert.
Colin, I'm with Alan Parry, who is from Sky Sports News, who was meant to be meeting Lord Tebbit, I believe.
Correct.
Could you explain what you saw?
Well, I was walking along the pavement opposite Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament, just outside Westminster Underground Station, when I heard an almighty crash, and a vehicle looked like a 4x4. I could see on the opposite side of the road had crashed into the railings. There was smoke coming from underneath the bonnet of this vehicle. I walked on a few paces further and saw what I assumed to be either a pedestrian or a cyclist who'd clearly been hit and wasn't moving, although he did then gently move for a couple of seconds. The guy who I assume was the driver of this 4x4 got out of the car and suddenly sprinted away from the scene, and that was followed by 4 what sounded very much like gunshots to me. And then all of a sudden, of course, all hell was let loose. Police descended everywhere. The whole area was locked down. And that's exactly what I saw. That's all I saw.
So when you say the gunfire, was that directed at the driver who appeared to be running away from the car?
It was very difficult to know that because, as I say, I was on the opposite pavement. I just saw this guy sprinting away. I heard the sound of gunshots. It was impossible to tell which direction they came from.
And what did the driver look like?
Well, again, he was a long way away from me. It was almost impossible to give a description of him. I don't know even, what colour he was or what nationality he may have been. I can't answer that.
And what about the atmosphere there? I mean, as you say, it sounds absolutely chaotic. I mean, people were running in all directions. Just paint a picture.
Yeah, I mean, I heard fellow pedestrians saying, oh, my God, the kind of thing that you hear when there has been a major incident. And obviously, it's a scary time at the moment for everyone in terms of national security. I still don't know what's happened. You may know more than I do. But it was a frightening couple of minutes, I have to say. I just got out of the way as quickly as I could because I was told to do so by the nearest policeman.
And you say that there was a cyclist on the ground. Did you see anybody else?
I assume he was a cyclist. He could have been a pedestrian. Clearly, he'd been hit by the 4x4, which then, as I say, smashed into the railings. And that was all I saw.
Alan, thank you very much indeed for your time. I should explain as well why we've been walking down Millbank. It's because the police keep on widening this area, safe area, antiseptic area around the incident. We've been pushed now back to anybody who knows the geography of London. We've been pushed back to nearly Horse Ferry Road, so you can see how wide the radius is of this incident. We're getting some more news here. In case an MP trapped in the chamber tells me the Prime Minister was in the division lobby when it happened and was escorted out by plainclothes policemen left in her car, and that would tally with what we saw as we came outside Millbank to see the detail, and the car that the Prime Minister often uses was speeding away from the scene. So now most of us have been pushed back as far as this. The situation obviously clearly still very confused, and the police taking no chances. As you can see now, they're turning away a lot of traffic, forcing out some of the trucks. You can see that there's some roadworks going on here on Millbank. All of these workers are now being evacuated from the area as well, as we try to make sense of what's going on here. I should tell you, Colin and Jane, I've lost communications with you, so I will leave it back to you in the studio.
Robert, thanks very much indeed. Just before we listen to another eyewitness, let me just repeat. The Commons leader, David Lidington, has told MPs a police officer has been stabbed and the alleged assailant was shot by armed police following a, quote, serious incident within the parliamentary estate.
Let's cross over to George Eaton, the political editor of New Statesman, who was down there as it was all unfolding. George, what did you see?
Yes, so I was watching this from the window by my desk in the press gallery, and I saw a large crowd fleeing the attacker, who appeared to be carrying a knife, fleeing him from close to the tube station. He then entered the gates of Parliament, charged at officers, and we now know that one of them was sadly stabbed, and he was then very swiftly shot by armed police.
What can you see out of your window now? What's happening?
There are 2 ambulances inside Parliament, so the officer will be receiving medical attention. And then Westminster is in lockdown. Ministers have been evacuated and journalists ordered to remain at their desks. And the traffic has obviously been stopped as well.
What do we know of the Prime Minister's movements? We understand that he was inside the building at the time.
Yes, I don't know. I don't know where. I just heard Theresa May was in the division lobby, I think, at the time, and I presume has been evacuated, although I don't know exactly where she is now.
What information have you been given inside?
We've been given very little information, to be honest. An officer came in and ordered all journalists to remain at their desks. I think we're all just grateful that the incident was obviously resolved as swiftly as it was. It was quite a terrifying experience, obviously witnessing it all from our windows.
We are hearing that there are a number of armed officers inside Parliament. Have you seen these people?
No, I haven't. No.